Have you ever walked into a house and felt the air holding a secret? My name's Jake, and when my best friend Ethan invited me to his place one summer, I was just expecting a short getaway filled with laughs. But the moment I stepped through the door, something in the way his mom, Natalie, looked at me made my heart skip a beat. This isn't just a story about friendships, about those moments that change you forever. Listen closely, because this tale will make you wonder what's waiting for you in the shadows. That summer, I was back in my hometown trying to save cash by freelancing and crashing at my brother's place. Life felt simple but stifling, like I was stuck in a loop of the same old days. Ethan, my best friend from high school, texted me one night, "Yo, come hang at my place for a few days. Mom says it's cool, we got a pool, barbecue, no drama." I didn't think twice. A quick escape, a few days by the pool with my buddies sounded perfect. The next morning I packed a bag, hopped on my bike, and pedaled through the familiar streets of our small town toward Ethan's house. Ethan's place sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac surrounded by perfectly trimmed hedges. The sidewalks were spotless, the lawns lush and green, whispering that chaos had no place here. The house radiated calm, but there was something in the air like it was guarding a secret I wasn't yet allowed to know. Ethan and I had been tight since our days, rocking oversized basketball jerseys and arguing over who sucked worse on the school team. Even now at different colleges, our friendship held strong through texts, memes, and late-night calls, griping about exams or annoying professors. Ethan flung the door open, barefoot, sunscreen smeared sloppily across his nose. "Yo, long time no see, bro." He grinned, slapping my back hard. He was the same as ever, loud, carefree, like time couldn't touch him. I stepped inside, my old sneakers squeaking on the polished hardwood. The faint scent of pine and lavender hung in the air, subtle but enough to make me want to breathe deeper. This house always felt like stepping into another world, where everything was meticulously arranged, from the throw pillows on the couch to the vase of fresh flowers on the dining table. Ethan's parents split about 2 years back. His dad moved to Nevada, remarried, and pretty much ghosted from Ethan's daily life. His mom, Natalie, kept the house. Last time I saw her, years ago, she had this quiet strength, like she was holding everything together without breaking. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her words carried weight, like you had to stop and listen. Natalie had this calm presence that made people lean in when she spoke. I remembered how guys at the grocery store would stare, not because she was loud or flashy, but because of her warm voice and sharp eyes. Ethan once mentioned she used to be a painter before marrying his dad, but now she only painted on rare evenings when the house was still. I arrived around noon. The summer sun spilled gold across the backyard, where a sparkling pool sat framed by lounge chairs under a shady canopy and a small birdcage dangling from the patio. It was the kind of backyard that made you want to kick back, close your eyes, and forget the world. Natalie stepped out through the sliding glass door, carrying a tray of lemonade and a bowl of sliced fruit. "Jake," she called, her voice soft but clear, like a low note on a piano. "So good to see you again." Her smile lingered a second too long, not intentional, but enough to make my stomach tighten. "Miss Natalie," I said, catching myself. "I mean Natalie, thanks." She chuckled, her eyes catching the sunlight. "No more Miss Davis, okay, you're grown now." Natalie looked different from how I remembered her. Not a drastic change, not like she suddenly turned glamorous, or anything. She just seemed alive. Her hair was longer, cascading over her shoulders, shimmering like silk in the sun. She wore a sleeveless light blue sundress, simple but fitting her frame naturally. No makeup, at least none I could see, but her face had this fresh glow, like she'd shed an invisible weight. "Grab some fruit," she said, setting the bowl on the outdoor table. "It's a hot one this summer." Her voice was gentle, but there was a new confidence I hadn't noticed before. We ate lunch in the backyard, juicy burgers fresh off the grill, the smoky aroma mixing with the citronella candles flickering nearby. Ethan rambled about college, from nearly flunking chemistry to the time he tried hosting a party and torched his microwave. I laughed, ribbing him about always being the worst at math class. Natalie sat across from us, sipping her lemonade, occasionally tossing in a witty comment that had us both cracking up. But there was one moment, as I reached for more mashed potatoes, when I felt her eyes on me. Not a glance, but a steady gaze, like she was trying to read something in me. Not flirty, not exactly just watching. I pretended not to notice, but my heart skipped a beat. She moved through the backyard with the ease of someone who owned every inch of it, not just the house, but the space itself, like every corner carried her mark. When she leaned down to pick a stray leaf off the table, the sunlight caught her hair, and I couldn't help but think of the paintings she might have created, the brushstrokes she'd left behind. Ethan didn't notice, or maybe he was just used to his mom being the center of attention, but I wasn't. I felt it, and it threw me off, like I'd stumbled into a story where I didn't know my role. As the sunset painted the backyard gold, we lingered, talking about random stuff, music, movies, summer plans. Natalie shared a story about trying to garden but killing all her tomatoes, and we laughed hard. But every time she looked at me, her smile stretched a second longer, and I wasn't sure if I was imagining it. The air stayed light, but there was an undercurrent, like a quiet hum of electricity, as if we both knew something was lurking in the shadows of this house. That night, Ethan and I sprawled in the living room, playing cards on the coffee table. The soft glow of a corner lamp cast shadows across the hardwood. Ethan's laughter echoed every time he won a hand, and I fired back with jabs about him cheating. It felt easy, like slipping back into high school days when life was simpler. But in the back of my mind, Natalie's gaze from dinner lingered, like a melody I couldn't shake. I tried to focus on the game, but that feeling clung to me. Vague and unsettling thought around midnight. Ethan yawned dramatically, stretching like he was auditioning for a play. "I'm out, man," he said, standing and clapping my shoulder. "Guest. Room's all yours. As usual night, bro." He shuffled down the hall, his footsteps fading, leaving me with a pile of empty soda cans on the table. I cleaned up quick, tossing them in the kitchen, then grabbed my bag and headed to the guest room. The door creaked as I opened it, a small sound but sharp in the house's stillness. The room was just as I remembered. Cream walls, a few watercolor paintings hanging loosely, a small table with a dusty lamp and a stack of untouched magazines. The bed was made up, sheets smelling faintly of fabric softener, like Natalie had prepped everything just for me. Asterisk, I flicked off the light, slipped under the covers, and let the quiet wrap around me. But sleep wouldn't come. Not because the bed was uncomfortable or the room was too warm. It was Natalie's eyes. The way she looked at me, not quite flirty, but not innocent either. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was just tired from a long day, but my heart didn't buy it. It raced every time I replayed the moment she paused at the dinner table, her gaze hinting at something I couldn't yet grasp. Maybe half an hour passed, and I was teetering on the edge of sleep when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not rushed, not hesitant, just steady, like someone walking with purpose. Then a floorboard creaked right outside the door and stopped. My heart slammed against my chest, suddenly wide awake. I opened my eyes, staring into the dark. The guest room door eased open, slowly, like someone was weighing every second. Natalie stood there in the doorway, the faint hallway light outlining her. She was wrapped in a towel, clutched tightly at her chest, the knot resting near her collarbone. Her hair was wet, clinging to her neck, a few droplets glistening on her skin under the dim light. She stood still, one hand gripping the doorframe like she was waiting for something. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. My heart pounded like it wanted to break free. "Oh," she said, her voice soft, almost surprised. "I didn't know you were still awake." Her tone was light, but there was no panic, like standing there in a towel was the most normal thing in the world. I sat up a bit, trying to keep my voice low and steady, though my head was a mess. "I heard a noise," she said, her voice still soft. "Thought you might be up." I nodded, not sure what to say. She glanced down, like she just realized what she was wearing, but she didn't rush to cover up or leave. A silence stretched between us, not awkward but heavy, like we both knew something was happening but weren't ready to name it. "I was at the pool," she added, like an afterthought. "I swim at night when I can't sleep." I nodded again, my throat dry. "Sounds nice," I said, just to fill the quiet. She smiled, barely, but enough to make the space between us feel smaller. "Sleep well, Jake," she said, her voice a whisper. Then she closed the door, gently, no hurry. Her barefoot steps on the tile echoed faintly, fading as she went, leaving me with a dark and a heart that wouldn't slow down. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, but sleep was a lost cause. That moment replayed in my head, like a movie stuck on loop. She hadn't done anything wrong, not really. She just opened the door, stood there, said a few words, and left. But the way she looked at me, calm, unflinching, made me feel like I wasn't just a guest anymore, like some invisible door had cracked open between us, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to step through. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Maybe she really heard a noise, maybe she was just passing by. But then I remembered how she stood, in the doorway, her gaze steady, not embarrassed but deliberate. I remembered her walk unhurried, like she knew exactly what she was doing. And I remembered her eyes at dinner, the look that felt like she was seeing through me, to a place even I hadn't explored. I rolled over, trying to get comfortable, but it was no use. The room was still, but the silence had a new weight. I thought about the family photo in the hallway, one I'd passed earlier. Ethan, just a kid, grinning wide next to Natalie and his dad. Natalie looked younger in the picture, but her eyes were the same sharp, like she always knew more than she let on. I wondered if she ever stood in front of that photo on sleepless nights, thinking about what she'd left behind. That night, I lay there, not sleeping. Not because I was nervous, but because I felt something starting, even if I didn't know what it was. Natalie hadn't done anything wrong, but she wasn't accidental either. And me, I wasn't sure who I was in this story anymore, a friend of her son, a guest, or someone who'd just stumbled into a moment that couldn't be undone. The next morning, I woke early, sunlight slipping through the blinds, casting soft streaks across the floor. I lay there, still hearing my heartbeat like the night before had left a rhythm I couldn't shake. The image of Natalie in the doorway, the towel clinging to her, her eyes hinting at something unspoken, looped in my mind. I didn't tell Ethan. How could I? There was nothing solid to touch. No words, just a moment that kept me awake. I got dressed, trying to push the feeling aside. But it stuck to me like a shadow dot in the kitchen. Natalie was already there, wearing yoga pants and a tank top, her wet hair tied up in a loose bun. She was pouring 2 cups of coffee, the rich aroma filling the room. "Morning," she said, looking up with a small smile. "You're up early." Her voice was normal, like nothing had happened. "Didn't sleep much," I admitted, taking the cup from her. Our fingers brushed, just for a second, but it was enough to jolt me. "Still getting used to the house?" she asked, raising an eyebrow, a playful edge to a smile. I nodded, though we both knew that wasn't the reason. Ethan stumbled in, rubbing his eyes, muttering about the sun being his personal enemy. He plopped down, launching into plans to hit up a movie in town. Natalie leaned against the counter, arms crossed, listening with ease. If she felt any awkwardness about last night, she didn't show it. But when our eyes met, just for a second, I felt a quiet acknowledgement. Not flirtation, not tension exactly, but an understanding. Like we were sharing a wordless secret. That afternoon, Ethan dragged me to town in his beat-up Jeep. "This record store's the best west of the Rockies. Trust me," he said, hyped. Up I laughed, letting him pull me into browsing old jazz vinyls I'd never heard of. We grabbed milkshakes, joking like we were 16 again. For a few hours, I almost forgot the moment with Natalie, her lingering gazing till we got back. She was in the backyard, lounging by the pool, a book in hand, sunglasses perched on her nose. Her hair was tied up, a towel under her, a glass of iced water nearby. She looked like she belonged in a magazine, serene and effortless. As I passed the glass door, she looked up, slid her sunglasses down, and smiled. It wasn't just a greeting, it carried something deeper, like she knew what I was thinking. I nodded, trying to play it cool, but that feeling surged back, like a current running through me. That night, Ethan got a text from his dad. "He wants to grab dinner tomorrow. Says it's been too long," he told me, glancing over. "You cool, staying one more night? I'll be back late." I shrugged. "Sure, it's your place," he grinned. "Mom's place, you mean? But yeah, it's cool. I'll be back by noon." Natalie walked in from the laundry room, arms full of towels. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice soft. Ethan nodded. "Dad wants to see me. I'll crash there. Jake's cool to stay, right?" She looked at me, her eyes warm. "More than cool," she said. "Jake, you're always welcome." After dinner, Natalie opened a bottle of wine and invited me to watch a movie. "I'm hooked on documentaries lately," she said, smiling. "But I can compromise." We picked an indie film, a slow story about lost time and second chances. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, a safe distance apart. But as the movie played, that distance shrank, not because anyone planned it, but like the space between us just melted away. Her leg brushed mine once lightly, and neither of us moved. I cracked a dumb joke about the film's pacing, and she laughed, a soft, warm sound that made me swallow hard. "You've always got this calm about you," she said, glancing at me. "Not like most guys your age, always making noise." I smiled, unsure how to respond. "I'm not great at noise." She nodded, eyes back on the screen. "That's what I like about you." Those 6 words hung in the air, heavier than anything else that night. When the movie ended, the lamp's soft glow bathed the room in gold. We sat in silence, the wine bottle empty. "I don't sleep much anymore," she said, almost a whisper. After the divorce, silence felt safer than people. I didn't reply, just listened. "You sleep okay?" she asked. "Sometimes," I said. She nodded. "I used to sleep better when this house was full." She stood, stretching slowly. "Thanks for watching with me any time," I said. She walked toward the hallway, then paused, turning back. Her voice was softer, like a quiet invitation. "If you can't sleep, I make a mean cup of tea." Then she was gone, swallowed. By the dark I sat there, heart racing. She hadn't said anything wrong, hadn't crossed a line, but she wasn't pretending either. That was the difference. And when I got back to the guest room, I found a cup of tea on the kitchen counter, steam rising, the faint scent of lemon lingering. Under it was a small note. "In case you can't sleep." I didn't drink the tea, not because I didn't want to, but because I was scared of what it meant. I folded the note, slipped it into my pocket, and went to bed. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, my heart wouldn't slow. Last night, her gaze, her subtle invitation had shifted everything. I didn't sleep, not out of nerves, but because I felt like I was standing on the edge of something huge, no way to go back. The next morning, Ethan left to see his dad. The house felt quieter, like it was holding its breath. I wandered out to the backyard with a bottle of water and saw Natalie pruning roses near the pool fence. She wore denim shorts and a tank top, her hair in a loose braid, earbuds dangling around her neck. The sun lit her up, highlighting the lines of her face, like she was a painting half finished. She looked up, smiling. "Sleep well?" she asked, her voice light. I nodded, though we both knew I was lying. "Thanks for the tea," I said. She shrugged, her eyes sparkling. "So it was still full this morning." I laughed, trying to stay casual. Didn't want to overthink it. She stood, brushing dirt off her knees, her eyes narrowing like she already knew my answer. Overthink what? She teased, her tone playful but sharp. I didn't answer, just looked at her, and she didn't push. That moment, under the sun by the pool, felt like a game we both knew the rules to but wouldn't name. The afternoon was sweltering like a blanket pressing down. I dove into the pool, shedding my shirt, letting the cool water wash away my tangled thoughts. I swam laps, from the shallow end to where the water spilled into the drain, trying to clear my head. Natalie sat under the shade, flipping through her book, but every now and then she'd look up, tossing out random questions. Read anything good lately? What movie makes you laugh hardest? What's the plan after college? They seemed harmless, but the way she listened, the way she tilted her head, like she was collecting pieces of me, made them feel intimate. I answered, keeping my voice steady, but every time our eyes met, I climbed out of the pool, water streaming down my chest, when I grabbed a towel to dry off. Natalie looked up from her book, her gaze lingering on me, then flicked back to the page. But that look wasn't rushed, wasn't hidden. She wasn't pretending anymore, and that made my heart race. I wrapped the towel around my waist, sat in the chair beside her, scrambling for something to say. "What are you reading?" I asked. She smiled, holding up the book. A story about people who are lost but find each other. I nodded, not sure I got it, but it felt like she was talking about us that night. After a simple dinner of pasta and salad, Natalie opened another bottle of wine. "You don't have to drink," she said softly, noticing my hesitation. "But I'll be out back, watching a show, if you change your mind." I waited half an hour, wrestling with myself, before stepping outside. She was on the patio lounge, a light blanket over her legs, laptop open, a show paused at the intro. Her wine glass sat untouched. "Knew you'd come," she said, not looking up, a smirk tugging at her lips. "You're usually right," I replied, sitting beside her. We watched a documentary about forgotten small towns. Not talking much, but the silence wasn't awkward. It was charged, like every breath was speaking for us. Halfway through, her arm rested on the back of the chair, behind me, not touching, just there. Then, out of nowhere, she turned, looking straight at me. Her eyes, under the patio's soft lights, were gentler but still piercing, like she saw everything I hadn't said. "I think I'm forgetting how to pretend," she whispered, like a confession. I looked back, my heart pounding. "Then don't." The air grew heavy, a long pause stretching between us. Then she leaned in, slowly, giving me every chance to pull back. I didn't. Her lips brushed mine, soft, like a question. I answered, no words, just us. The kiss wasn't rushed, wasn't hungry, just honest. Her fingers grazed my cheek once, and I felt her breath blend with mine. When we pulled apart, we both froze. Her eyes searched mine like she needed to be. "Sure, this doesn't feel wrong," she said, her voice small but steady. "No," I said. She hesitated, just for a second. "But it's not easy either." "No," I agreed. We sat there, the documentary playing on, forgotten. Finally she stood, the blanket slipping off her legs. "I'm going to bed," she said softly. "Thank you, Jake, for not being afraid to see me." I watched her walk away, not with seduction, but with a sincerity that weighed on my chest. Back in the guest room, I pulled the note from my pocket, unfolding it. "In case you can't sleep." She was right. I didn't sleep. But this time it wasn't confusion or nerves. It was knowing that moment had changed everything, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. We hadn't crossed a line we couldn't undo, but we'd come close, and we both knew it. The house, with its quiet, seemed to be waiting to see what we'd do next. The next morning, soft sunlight filtered through the blinds, but the guest room didn't feel like a refuge anymore. Last night's kiss, Natalie's raw honesty, lingered like a dream I couldn't shake. I lay there, hearing the faint sound of the shower running, and it all came rushing back, her lips on mine. Her words, "Thank you for not being afraid to see me." Nothing was wrong, but it wasn't easy either. I got dressed, moving slowly, like each action could delay facing the day. In the kitchen, Natalie was already there, hair wrapped in a towel, wearing loose cotton sweats, her face bare but still radiating calm. "Morning," she said, her voice as light as ever, like last night was a fleeting dream. She handed me a coffee, her fingers brushing mine, just enough to remind me of her warmth. "Sleep well?" she asked, a playful glint in her eyes. "Like a rock," I lied, and she smiled, like she knew the truth. We sat across from each other at the counter, sipping coffee in silence, not awkward but careful, like we were walking on thin glass. "Ethan will be back in an hour," she said, glancing at the clock. "Staying for lunch? I'm making pasta." Her tone was normal, but there was a hint of something, not regret, but like a door closing, gently but firmly. "Not sure yet," I said, feeling the invisible distance between us growing. Ethan came back, bursting with his usual loud energy. He rambled about dinner with his dad, his new stepmom, and their what's obsession with bird. He didn't notice anything off, and why would he? Natalie played the mom role perfectly, no strange looks, no tension in her voice. She moved around the kitchen, pouring juice, joking with Ethan like our moment never happened. I watched her, realizing she was used to keeping secrets, building invisible walls, while I was still lost in that moment. She'd already moved past it, graceful as ever. The afternoon passed in a haze. Ethan dragged me into a video game, and I went along, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about Natalie's note, the kiss, the way she looked at me like I was the only one who truly saw her. When Ethan stepped out to shower, I sat on the couch, my hand slipping into the cushion. A small folded note was tucked there: tonight, by the pool, late, no name, but I knew it was her. My heart raced, but I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore that night. With crickets chirping and moonlight silvering the backyard, I stepped outside just after midnight. Natalie was by the pool, in a long robe, holding a glass of water. The garden lights cast a soft glow, making her look like a living statue. She didn't look up right away. "Wasn't sure you'd come," she said, her voice low, eyes fixed on the water. "Neither was I replied, sitting beside her. She nodded, still staring at the pool, its ripples catching the light. "I told myself last night was a mistake," she said, almost to herself. "A beautiful moment, but not one to repeat." She finally looked at me, her eyes soft but firm. "But now I'm not so sure." I took a deep breath. "You made me feel seen," I said, my voice rough. "That's the problem," she whispered, barely audible. "We didn't kiss, didn't touch, just sat there listening to the pool filter hum like distant thunder. When I stood to leave, she said, 'You're heading back soon, right, to your place?' I paused. 'You want me to go?' She looked away. 'I think I'm supposed to want that.' The next morning, clouds rolled in, bringing a cool breeze. The house felt heavier, like it knew I was leaving. I packed my bag, folding each shirt slowly, like I could hold on to something. Ethan knocked, poking his head in, taking off. He asked, "Yeah, my brother needs the car." He nodded. "Thanks for coming, man. Like old times." I smiled. "Yeah, like old times." He tilted his head. "You seemed different." I shrugged. Maybe he didn't push. As usual, Natalie was in the kitchen when I brought my bag down, rinsing berries at the sink. "She didn't turn right away, leaving?" she asked, her voice soft. "Yeah." She set the berries down, turning to face me, her eyes holding something I couldn't name. Not sadness, not regret, but deeper. "Thanks for staying, Jake," she said. "Thanks for having me." She pulled a napkin from a drawer, handing it to me. I wrote something. "You don't have to read it now." I tucked it in my pocket, unopened. She stepped closer, but kept her distance. "I hope you remember this time for what it was, not what it couldn't be." I nodded, my throat tight. "I'll remember." We didn't hug. We didn't need to. I said goodbye to Ethan on the porch, giving him a quick bro hug, promising to text soon. He waved as I got in the car. Natalie didn't come outside, just stood at the window, half hidden. But I saw her, and I knew she knew I saw. When I got home, I unfolded the napkin. One sentence, her handwriting careful and flowing. "Not everything has to last to matter." No name, no greeting, just the truth. I didn't tell anyone, Ethan, and I still talk, but less. Natalie never reached out, not a hint. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I hear her voice in the dark, see the tea, her eyes. It wasn't a love story. It wasn't a mistake. It was just a moment. And some moments don't need to be understood, just remembered. Life teaches us through unexpected moments, the ones that change us forever. This story reminds us that sometimes, the briefest connections hold the deepest meaning. Have you ever had a moment that shifted you, even for a minute? Share your story. We want to hear. Life is a string of moments, and sometimes, the fleeting ones carve the deepest marks on our souls. Jake and Natalie's story isn't a romance or a regret, it's an unexpected turn where two people found each other in the quiet, if only for a moment. Natalie's final note, "Not everything has to last to matter," is a reminder that a moment's value lies not in its length, but in how it makes us feel and grow. Life, with all its chaos and uncertainty, teaches us that sometimes, the things we can't define shape us the most. Hidden Tales believes everyone has a story tucked away, a moment that changed how you see the world. Have you been through something like that? A fleeting glance, a brief conversation, or a night that kept you awake? Share your story in the comments. We want to hear, and so does the Hidden Tales community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories. Join us in uncovering the mysteries of the heart and the lessons life brings, because every moment is worth telling.